The throne room of the alien palace was carved from crystal and steel. Towers of light shimmered above, yet all the brightness could not hide the shadows in the queen's eyes. She sat upon her throne, tall and regal, her golden crown glowing faintly with alien fire. Soldiers lined the walls. Banners of her empire stretched across the hall. But the queen's heart carried a wound no crown could heal. For years, she had ruled with power and wisdom. For years, her enemies had feared her. But none of that mattered, not when her daughters were gone. 6 young princesses, her blood, her future, stolen in one cruel night. Raiders had come, slipping past defenses, vanishing into the stars before. Her ships could catch them. Every night since, the queen felt their absence. She would dream of small hands holding hers, of laughter echoing in her chambers, only to wake to silence. Her empire called her strong, but inside she broke a little. More each day. Her generals searched. Her spies whispered. Some claimed the princesses were dead. Others said they had been sold into slavery. No proof ever reached her throne. Hope faded, like a candle burning down to its last ember dot, and then he came. The guards announced him with confused voices. A human, alone, dressed not in silk or armor but in worn clothes, dust of travel on his boots. He walked without fear into the throne room, head held high though every alien eye judged him unworthy. Humans were new to the stars, weak compared to the ancient empires. Why would one dare stand before the queen? He stopped at the bottom of the throne steps. Slowly, he bent one knee. His voice was steady, though the hall trembled with whispers. "Your Majesty," he said, "I have seen your daughters." The words cut through the air like a blade. The court erupted shouts, gasps, curses. Guards stepped forward, weapons half raised. But the queen lifted her hand, and silence fell. Her eyes narrowed. Her voice, smooth but edged with steel, carried across the chamber. "You, human, do you know what you claim? My daughters are lost beyond the stars. My enemies delight in false rumors. My heart has been broken enough. Speak another lie, and you will not leave this hall alive." The human did not flinch. His eyes held no arrogance, only quiet determination. "I do not speak lies," he said. "I found a world, hidden, chained in shadow. A prison for children. Stolen from many races. Among them were 6 young girls. Their markings, their voices, they called for their mother." The queen's breath caught. For the first time in years, her heart stumbled between hope and disbelief. But she mastered herself quickly. "How could a human find what my armies could not?" she asked. Her voice shook only slightly. "How do I trust your words?" The human bowed his head. "You do not have to trust me. Only let me guide you. Let me prove it. If I lie, kill me. If I speak truth, then let a mother hold her daughters again." Silence returned, heavier than before. The queen's counselors whispered in her ear, warning her of trickery. Generals muttered about traps and ambushes. The court was ready to laugh at the human's boldness, but the queen did not laugh. Her eyes studied him closely. There was something in his face, tired, scarred, but honest. He had seen hardship. He had risked much to stand here. And he carried no crown, no weapon, no army. Only his words. Her heart whispered, "What if he is right?" The queen rose from her throne. Her figure towered, every jewel and plate of armor gleaming. In the light, the hall bowed as she stepped forward, her gaze locked on the human. She stopped before him, so close she could hear the beating of his fragile heart. "If you are wrong," she said softly, "I will end you with my own hand." The human looked up at her, and for the first time since her daughters were taken, the queen saw something she had not felt in years. Hope. Asterisk, the queen's words still echoed in the vast hall. "If you are wrong, I will end you with my own hand." The human was led away from the throne room, chains locked around his wrists, guards at his side. Yet he did not resist. He walked with calm steps, as if the weight of steel meant nothing compared to the weight of the story he carried. That night, in a chamber lit by cold blue light, the Queen summoned him again. The hall was empty, now no court, no generals, only her, 2 silent guards, and the human dot. She studied him for a long time before speaking. "Tell me, every word. Leave nothing hidden." The human nodded once. His voice was low but steady, like someone who had told this story many times in his own mind. "I was no one," he began. "A traitor. My ship was small, my crew smaller. We followed the quiet routes, the forgotten lanes of space, where pirates and smugglers crawl like shadows. One day, I found myself too close to a system marked forbiddens. My ship was damaged. We had no choice but to land." His eyes hardened as memories surfaced. It was a dead world. Gray skies, broken towers, ash across the ground. I thought it abandoned. But then I heard voices. Not the voices of soldiers or raiders, children. Crying. The Queen's breath caught, though she gave no sign. I followed the sound. The human continued. "I found cages. Metal cages, row after row, buried under the ruins. Inside were children, hundreds of them, thin, weak, scared. They came from many races, but 6. 6 of them had eyes like fire and marks upon their skin. They looked at me as if they already knew I would come." The Queen's hands gripped the armrests of her seat. Her mind's eye painted the image. 6 small girls, torn from her arms, caged like animals, waiting in darkness. "What happened then?" she asked softly. The human's jaw clenched. "I wanted to free them all. But the place was guarded by machines, hunters of metal, built to kill intruders. My crew fought, but we were too few. I was forced to retreat. Yet I swore I would not leave empty-handed. I swore I would carry their story to someone who could help." He looked up, his eyes meeting the Queen's. "They begged me not to forget them. They begged me to tell their mother they were alive, so I came here. I risked everything, because I could not bear to see children suffer in silence. I am only human, but I could not walk away." The chamber was silent. Even the guards, trained to feel nothing, shifted uncomfortably. The Queen's voice was low, dangerous, but filled with something else, pain. "Do you know what you risk, speaking this to me? If it is a trick, your death will not be quick." The human did not blink. "If it saves them, my life is worth nothing. Kill me if that is the price. But if you doubt me, then your daughters will remain in chains forever." The Queen rose slowly from her seat. Her shadow fell across the chamber, tall and heavy, yet her eyes betrayed the storm inside her. For years, she had trusted only her armies, her spies, her empire of fire and steel. And yet none of them had brought her even a whisper of hope. But now, a lone human, with nothing to his name, carried a spark of truth into her heart, hope, and fear. At last, she spoke. "Very well, you will guide my soldiers. You will take us to this world. But know this, if you deceive me, if even a single step is false, I will end you before the stars themselves." The human bowed his head. "I accept." The Queen turned away, hiding the tremor in her breath. For the first time in years, her heart beat not with grief, but with dangerous, fragile hope. The Queen was not a fool. Hope was a dangerous poison, and humans were still strangers to the galaxy. She could not risk her fleet chasing ghosts. She could not risk her heart breaking again, not so before the human could guide them to the prison world. She set a trial. A cruel one. It began at dawn, when the palace gates opened and a column of armored soldiers marched into the courtyard. Their armor gleamed silver blue. Their weapons crackled with energy. These were not common guards. They were the Queen's hunters, her most loyal warriors, feared across the stars. They bowed before her throne, awaiting command. The Queen's voice rang out, sharp and cold. This human claims to know the path to my daughters. He claims to walk where none of my armies have succeeded. Let us see if he speaks with courage. Or with a coward's tongue, he will travel with you. He will face the wilds of my world. If he is false, the dangers will tear him apart before the sun sets." The crowd of nobles cheered at her judgment, but the human did not tremble. His chains were removed, and his escort closed around him like wolves. The journey began across the Queen's own planet, a world of strange beauty and deadly trials. Wide plains of glowing grass stretched before them, broken by forests where the air shimmered with toxic mist. The hunters moved with steady discipline, masks filtering the poison, blades ready. The human carried no armor, no weapon, but a simple blade at his hip. Still, he walked without slowing, his eyes scanning the horizon. One of the hunters, a tall commander with a scar carved across his jaw, sneered at him. "Do you know where you stand, human? This land devours the weak. Many of our own die here. If you falter, we will leave your bones for the wind." The human only answered, "Then I will not falter." Hours passed, the sun blazing above, until the ground itself began to tremble. From beneath the plains, shapes burst forth, serpents of stone and fire, their scales glowing like molten rock. The hunters formed a circle instantly, energy blades flashing. The human was shoved back. "Stay behind us, soft flesh." One of them barked, but the human shook his head. His eyes caught something the others missed. The way the serpent's movement stirred the earth, the rhythm of their attacks. He shouted above the clash of blades, "Strike when they rise. Their bellies are soft." The hunters ignored him at first, too proud to heed a human. They slashed at armored hides, and their blades sparked uselessly. One soldier was caught, dragged screaming into the earth. The human grabbed a fallen spear, ran forward, and drove it upward as the next serpent reared above him. The weapon pierced the glowing underbelly, and the beast howled. Collapsing in ash, the hunters stared. The commander growled, but his strikes began to follow the human's call. Together, they drove the serpents back, turning the tide of battle. The last beast fell. Silence covered the field. The hunters breathed heavily, their pride shaken. The human wiped blood from his brow and said quietly, "You fight well. But sometimes strength is not enough. You must see what others do not." For the first time, the commander did not sneer. He studied the human with narrowed eyes. That night, as they camped under alien stars, the hunters whispered among themselves. Some still doubted him. Others, grudgingly, admitted he had saved their lives. The commander approached the Queen's messenger crystal and spoke. "The human lives. And he fights. Perhaps there is more to him than empty words." In her palace, the Queen listened. She did not smile, but something flickered in her chest. Perhaps this trial would not end the way she expected. But the Queen was not done testing him. The next morning, she sent a second trial. They climbed into the forest where trees stretched 100 meters high, their leaves dripping poison, their roots alive with hunger. Here, the Queen's daughters once played as children. Before they were stolen, the human felt the eyes of the hunters on him, waiting for failure. The forest came alive. Roots lashed out like whips, pulling soldiers off their feet. One was dragged, screaming into the trees. Another fell to the mist, choking. The human cut at a root with his small blade, useless against the mass of living wood. Then he remembered the children in the cages, small, fragile, calling for help. His heart surged with fury. He would not let this world take more lives. He grabbed a torch, igniting it with sparks from his blade, and drove it into the roots. The forest screamed, recoiling from the fire. The path opened, clear and safe. The hunters stared again. Fire simple, human fire had won where their weapons failed. By the time they emerged from the forest, battered but alive, the commander no longer looked at the human with contempt. He spoke only 4 words, but in the hunter's tongue, it was a rare gift. "You walk with honor." Asterisk, the Queen's fleet stirred the skies like thunder. Sleek warships rose from the palace docks, their hulls glowing with alien energy, banners streaming from their sides. Soldiers filled the decks, hunters sharpened their blades, and the air trembled with power. But in the center of it all, walking up the ramp of the flagship, was only one human. He carried no rank, no title, no crown. He carried only the memory of 6 small voices crying in cages. The Queen stood at the command deck, her figure blazing in silver armor. She watched as the human was brought forward in chains. Her eyes never left him. He had survived the trials, earned her hunter's respect. But still she feared betrayal. "This is no simple voyage," she warned. Her voice was cold, heavy. "The stars between here and that prison world are soaked in danger. Pirates stalk the lanes. Empires guard their borders. If you have led us into a trap, human, you will not live to regret it." The human met her gaze, steady as stone. "I do not seek to live. I seek to save them. If that costs me my life, so be it." Something flickered in her chest again, but she turned away before. Her soldiers could see. The fleet tore through hyperspace, streaks of light carving the void. For a time, silence reigned. But silence never lasted in these parts of the galaxy. On the 3rd day, alarms blared. Dozens of ships appeared on the scanners, pirates, their hulls patched with stolen metal, their weapons blazing with greed. They had been waiting in ambush. The Queen's fleet roared to battle. Energy beams cut across the black. The sky became fire. The pirates swarmed like wolves, their smaller ships darting between the mighty cruisers, striking where shields were weak. The Queen stood tall, commanding her forces, her voice thunder in the storm. Yet even she could not be everywhere. It was the human who saw the truth first. He stared at the star map, watching the patterns of the pirate ships. He saw how they herded the fleet, pushing them toward a narrow corridor between asteroids. A trap, a slaughterhouse. He rushed to the commander's table. "They're driving us into the rocks. They'll collapse the field and crush us inside." The commander snarled. "Silence, human. You know nothing of war." But the Queen's eyes turned sharp. She studied the map, and in a heartbeat she saw it too. The human was right. "Divert the fleet," she ordered. "Strike the pirate core before they close the trap." Her generals hesitated only a moment, then obeyed. Warships veered, weapons unleashed a storm into the pirate heart. Ships exploded, fire consumed the void, and the ambush shattered. The pirates scattered into the dark. When silence returned, the Queen looked at the human with something close to respect. "You see what others do not," she said softly. The human only answered, "Because I cannot afford not to." But danger did not end with pirates. Beyond the lanes lay a nebula, vast, glowing, beautiful, and deadly. Storms of lightning raged within, tearing metal apart like paper. To reach the prison world, they had no choice but to cross it. The fleet hesitated at the edge, captains whispering of ships lost forever inside. The Queen's eyes burned with determination. "We will go through." The first hours were chaos. Lightning storms crashed against the hulls, frying systems, throwing soldiers to the ground. Clouds of glowing gas swallowed whole vessels. Even the Queen's mighty warship shuddered under the storm. It was again the human who moved where others froze. He studied the currents, the flashes of light, the rhythm of the storm. To him, it was like the ocean of his home world, where fishermen once read the waves to guide their boats. He grabbed the helm of a shuttle and shouted to the commander, "Follow me. I see the safe path." The hunters roared in protest, but the Queen silenced them with a single gesture. Her eyes locked on the human. "Prove it." The human dove into the storm. Lightning lit the shuttle like fire, clouds pressed in, metal screamed. But he guided the vessel between the currents, reading the flow of energy like lines on water. One by one, the fleet followed. Hours later, battered but alive, The Queen's fleet burst free of the nebula, stars shining clear once more. The soldiers cheered. The hunters stared in quiet awe. Even the commander, scarred and proud, gave the human a nod of respect. The Queen watched silently. For the first time in years, her heart allowed itself to whisper, "Perhaps he truly can do this." Asterisk, the fleet hung in silence above the dead world. It was not like other planets. This one looked wounded, as if the very surface had been torn open by claws of fire. Cracks spread across its crust, glowing faintly with dying heat. Towers of black iron jutted from the ground like broken spears. The human stood at the viewport, his fists tight at his sides. His voice was low, but everyone on the bridge heard it. "That is the place. The cages are buried beneath those ruins." The Queen's eyes fixed on the planet. For years she had imagined what became of her daughters. For years she had forced herself to bury hope. Now hope rose again, sharp and painful, like a blade pressing against her chest. She gave the order. "Prepare to descend." Shuttles dropped through the clouds, their engines screaming against the thick, ash-filled air. The sky above was red, the wind carrying the stench of rust and old blood. The ruins of machines lay scattered across the plain's giant walkers, tanks and broken weapons, left to rot by time. But the danger was not gone. The human's voice was tight. "Stay alert. They will not let us take the children so easily." The hunters moved in formation, blades glowing, rifles raised. The Queen herself descended with them, her armor shining even in the dark. She would not send others to fight for her daughters. She would walk into hell herself. The first sound came from the shadows, metal grinding against stone. Then the earth shook. From the cracks and towers, they came machines built to hunt. Tall as beasts, shaped like spiders of steel, their eyes burned red. Their claws scraped fire. The hunters roared and charged. Blades met metal. Rifles spat bolts of energy. The machines answered with storms of sparks, cutting down soldiers with merciless speed. The Queen fought at the front, her spear slicing through steel, her voice a cry of fury. Yet even she could not hold back the tide. The machines were endless. It was the human who broke the chaos. He had fought here before, once with his small crew. He remembered how the machines moved, how they guarded their nests. He climbed a broken tower, fire raining around him, and shouted down to the hunters, "Do not waste your strength. They protect the cages, not themselves. Strike the black pylons. Break their power, and the machines will fall." The commander looked up, hesitation in his eyes, then barked the order. Hunters shifted, focusing their fire on the massive black pylons buried in the ground. One by one, the towers cracked. The machines screamed like living things, collapsing as their energy died. The tide turned. The hunters pushed forward, and silence fell at last. The human dropped from the tower, chest heaving. He led them deeper into the ruins, into a cavern hidden beneath the earth. And there, the sound began. Soft voices, weak, trembling, but real. Children. The Queen froze. For a moment, she could not breathe. Then she stepped forward, her armored boots ringing on the stone. The cavern opened into a hall of cages. Metal bars stretched as far as the eye could see. Inside them, children of many races huddled, thin and afraid. Some flinched at the sight of soldiers. Others whispered prayers. And then 6 voices rose. "Mother!" The Queen staggered. Her heart slammed in her chest. She gripped the bars, her hands shaking, her breath breaking. 6 small faces pressed against the cage, eyes burning like fire, marks glowing faintly on their skin. Her daughters. Tears she had never allowed fell freely now. She reached through the bars, touching their hands, their hair, their faces. "My children, my stars, I am here." The human turned away, giving her the moment. But the weight of danger still pressed around them. The cages were locked with ancient codes. The hunters cut through one, sparks flying, but the sound echoed too loudly that the human's face darkened. "We have little time. The machines will rise. Again, this place will not let them go without blood." As the last lock broke, alarms thundered through the cavern. Red light flooded the walls. The ground shook again. From the deeper shadows came heavier machines, guardians of the prison. Larger than anything before, the queen pulled her daughters into her arms, shielding them with her own body. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed fear. The human drew his small blade. Against such monsters, it was almost nothing. Yet his stance was firm, his jaw set. He looked back at the queen and her daughters, then at the hunters bracing for death. "If this is the price," he said quietly, "then let it be paid." The cavern shook as the guardians emerged. They were not like the smaller machines the hunters had fought before. These ones were titans, towering beasts of iron and fire. Their limbs were thick as trees, their eyes glowing with a deep red light that pulsed like a heartbeat. With every step, the ground cracked. The hunters formed a wall in front of the queen, weapons raised, blades sparking in the red glow. But even the fiercest among them knew this battle was not one they could win for long. The queen stood in the middle of it all, her daughters clinging to her armor. She held them close, her heart torn between triumph and terror. She had found them, after all these years. But what if she lost them again, here, in the jaws of steel? Her voice was steady, though grief threatened to break it. "Guard them with your lives," the first guardian struck. A claw the size of a ship's wing slammed into the ground, sending hunters flying like dolls. Sparks filled the air, screams echoed through the cavern. But the soldiers held their ground. The human did not hide behind them. He stepped forward. His small blade looked pathetic in his hands, but his eyes burned brighter than the machine's red glow. He remembered the promise he had made in that cage, when 6 frightened children had looked up at him. "Tell our mother we are alive," he had told her. Now he had to make sure they lived long enough to go home. He grabbed a fallen rifle from a dead hunter and charged. The weapon kicked in his hands, beams slicing against steel. He dodged a claw, rolled across the stone, and fired. Again at a weak joint in the guardian's leg. The machine staggered, sparks flying. The hunters shouted in surprise. A human, fragile flesh, fighting like one of them. The queen watched him. Every instinct screamed to drag him back, to keep him from being crushed. But another voice inside her whispered, "This is why he came. This is why he matters." The guardians pressed harder. One lunged at the cages, its claw tearing through the stone where children hid. The queen leapt forward, spear blazing, driving it into the machine's chest. The clash shook the cavern, her strength forcing the monster back. Her daughters screamed behind her, but she did not move. She would not move. Together, human and queen fought side by side. The human's lungs burned, his arms shook, but he refused to stop. Each time he fell, he rose again. Each time the machine struck, he found a gap, a crack, a weakness. He shouted to the hunters, his voice raw, "Cut the joints, break the cores, don't waste shots on the armor." They listened now. The proud soldiers who once spat on his name moved in time with him, their blades striking where he pointed. One guardian collapsed, its chest ripped open in fire. Another shrieked as its leg shattered, crashing to the ground. The cavern became chaos, fire, screams, the clash of steel and flesh against iron. And through it all, the queen never let her daughters go. Even as she fought, even as blood ran down her arm, she held them close. Her strength came not from her crown, but from the 6 small hands gripping her armor. At last, the last guardian fell. It crashed into the cavern floor, sending a cloud of dust and sparks into the air. Silence followed, broken only by the ragged breathing of survivors. The human stood in the middle, covered in ash and blood, his chest rising and falling with exhaustion. He had no strength left, but he still stood. The queen stepped forward, her daughters at her side. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, slowly she lowered her spear and spoke in a voice the entire chamber heard. "You brought them back." "To me." Her daughters clung to her legs, then turned to the human. One of them, the smallest, whispered, "You promised." "And you kept it." The human knelt, his face softening. "No child should be left alone, not in this galaxy, not ever." The hunters bowed their heads. Soldiers who once mocked him now saluted. Even the commander with the scar spoke, his voice deep with respect. "You fight like one of us." "No, better than us. Without you, we would be dead." The queen placed her hand on the human's shoulder. Her touch was heavy with meaning. "You are no longer a stranger. You are part of my blood. You saved my empire's future. You saved my heart." The human lowered his head, humbled. He had never sought glory, only justice for the children. But now, he had earned something greater honor that no crown could buy. The shuttles returned to the flagship, carrying the queen, her daughters, and the human. The fleet pulled away from the prison world, leaving its broken guardians smoldering in the dust. Soldiers cheered as the news spread. The princesses were alive. Hope filled the ships, but fear still lingered. For though the cages were broken, the enemy who had built them was still unseen. Somewhere in the galaxy, the real master of this horror was watching and waiting. The queen stood at the center of her throne chamber, her 6 daughters beside her. They clung to her robes, whispering, laughing through tears, their voices a song she had not heard in years. She touched each one's face, her armor streaked with ash, her crown heavy with memory. She had fought wars, crushed empires, commanded legions. Yet all of that power had failed to bring her children home. It was not her armies that had saved them. It was a human. The human stood a few paces away, silent, his clothes torn, his skin bruised. He did not ask for reward. He only watched as the daughters wrapped themselves around their mother, his face calm, almost relieved. The queen's generals waited, their eyes hard. Some whispered that the human was dangerous, that he should be kept under guard. Others spoke of honor, that he should be thanked but dismissed. But the queen said nothing. She studied him in silence, weighing the weight of his deeds against the voice of doubt. At last, she rose from her throne. Her voice carried across the chamber, strong and unshakable. "Years ago, my enemies tore my daughters from me. They mocked my empire. They believed my strength could be broken. For years I searched, and I found nothing. Nothing but grief." Her hand tightened on her spear. But this human alone, unarmed, with nothing but his word, succeeded where empires failed. He walked into the shadow and brought back my light. Gasps filled the chamber. The generals shifted uneasily. Some bowed their heads, others clenched their jaws. The queen turned, her eyes blazing. She raised her hand and pointed to the human. "This human is no stranger. He is no outsider. He's the one who gave me back my daughters. And so I declare him blood of the throne." The chamber erupted. Nobles cried out in shock. Soldiers struck their chests in salute. The daughters cheered, running to the human, grabbing his hands, pulling him toward their mother. The human froze, stunned. "Your Majesty, I am only..." The queen silenced him with a look. "You are only human, and that is enough." The hunters stepped forward, their commander at the front. The scarred warrior who once spat on the human now dropped to one knee, his head bowed. "We will follow him, as we follow you." The human's chest tightened. He had never sought this. He had never wanted thrones, crowns, or armies. But he could not deny the truth. He had seen the cages, the children, the suffering that stretched beyond this world. If he turned away now, more would remain lost. The queen's daughters hugged him tightly, their small voices trembling but full of joy. Don't leave us, one whispered. Stay with us. You are part of our family now. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, his heart felt at peace. But peace was not forever. As the cheers echoed across the chamber, a warning siren cut through the air. A scout ship had returned with news. The prison world was only one of many. Across the galaxy, there were dozens more worlds filled with stolen children, guarded by the same red-eyed machines. The chamber fell silent. The truth was clear. True enemy was vast, hidden in the dark. This was not the end of a war. This was the beginning. The Queen looked at the human. He looked back. No fear in his eyes. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through the hall like thunder. Then we will fight together, the human nodded. We will bring them all home. That night, when the stars burned bright above the fleet, the Queen sat with her daughters at last. For the first time in years, they fell asleep in her arms, safe. She looked across the chamber, where the human kept silent watch by the door. His blade resting at his side. He was not one of her people. He was not of her blood. But without him, the light of her life would still be lost. The Queen whispered into the stillness, a vow for herself and for the galaxy. He is human. But he is ours,